Hi, welcome to CTALK. We are joined today by Julian Taylor-Green, and Julian has two stores. So Julian, could you tell us a little bit about your two stores and how far apart they are?
Hi, good morning, Kate. Yes, I've got two stores, one in Lindford, Hampshire, and one in Staffordshire, in Staffordshire. So yeah, a bit of a logistics challenge as they are just over 200 miles apart.
Cool. So how's business going in both of those stores?
It's really difficult to sort of pinpoint, because clearly at this point in time now we're looking back year on year at what was the COVID numbers last year, and so there's a significant decline in sales. But in true terms, it was both stores are still doing extremely well. Both stores, right the way from January, have levelled out, and the sales have been, with the exception of things like Easter, we still get those larger peaks, have been stable. The sales have been stable. The mix in the business has been stable. And each time we think something's going to counteract it and the sales are potentially going to go back, we don't see any real decline. And it was quite strange, because when you get to sort of the Easter numbers, it was first time in my life I've had an 18% sales decline and been standing there thinking, well, that was a good weekend. I still enjoyed it. It was really good. So the numbers were still really good. I think the beat for me at the moment was we're trying to reforecast both stores, not based on last year's numbers, but the 2018, 2019 numbers, and try to get some sort of semblance of what we think the future will be. But yeah, no, at the moment, still very positive.
Okay, so what have been some of the highlights over the last couple of months?
I think the critical piece is, again, like everything else, I don't think lockdown 3 has made a significant difference in terms of an increase in sales that people possibly thought we would get, bearing in mind what happened in the early part of last year. What it has seen, it's been very stable right the way through. The customer account is starting to move back forward again. So again, if you look year on year, there's a real movement in that. And I would think that probably the basket spend is just coming back, which is why we've still got that level. There are, I suppose the biggest takeout for me at the moment is that there seems to be that at the moment the multiples are still doing their piece, the marketplace is still doing its piece, but there is still the consumer is still using us to use in their everyday baskets, and particularly in the categories that historically they probably wouldn't have done. And I think when I look at Western Downs,
what kind of categories?
Sorry,
what kind of categories?
All the fresh categories. So the Western Downs store was probably the easiest one to really give a. When we put that together and did the budgeting for that in 2019, it exceeded the target when we opened. It lagged 2 or 3 weeks behind the established store in terms of finding its feet, because historically it had been poorly ranged and probably poorly managed. And I think the consumer went in there as a last resort. We're pleasantly surprised in terms of fresh food offer, food to go offer, albeit limited in terms of how many people wanted it, chilled offer, availability, ambient grocery. So I think that one then caught up quite quickly, the same sort of traction, and has settled down. And when we looked at that, we thought it would be very much a neighbourhood convenience store, and it's almost a borderline neighbourhood straight fresh store. And those fresh categories have stayed up there and are still trading really well 12 months down the road.
Great. So what's some of the challenges that you've had to face?
I think the same as everybody. The first piece, we get the real negatives out. The first piece is that the mask wearing, the social distancing in store, trying to protect the store, protect the staff, who, as we all know, have been at the front line all the way through and have had to work in pretty difficult circumstances. And that there's been some aggression. We've had on a couple of occasions some nasty theft there, and disappointingly, there's just very little support from the police. So the tendency is that nothing happens. But from a positive foot piece, it's been really about trying to keep on. In the early stages of COVID, it was very much about availability. That settled down into a pattern. It seems to have just over the last few weeks started to hiccup again. There seems to be some pressure, particularly on cardboard and products that are put into tins. So that again's put in a bit of pressure in terms of availability and having an impact there. I think the other piece for us more than anything else, because the sales numbers are still very, very high, it's about trying to get the availability right in terms of the way we order it, the order process, making sure we've got frequency of orders in and out, and making sure that we're staying on top of things there. And again, like everything else, particularly because both sites are being managed for me and I'm just overseeing it, is just making sure that the staff thinking ahead, particularly now as we come into the spring and summer, that we're building stock in the critical areas just to counteract some of the market issues, but also to counteract the fact that the sales will go up as well.
Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out to? Anyone you want to say thank you to for their support? Is there any suppliers that have been particularly supportive over the last few months?
I think the biggest shout out for me is actually the staff. And I think, funny enough, you were talking about do as Raj was doing. I think Sunita said something the other day on one of the meetings we were in, isn't it? The biggest shout out needs to go to the staff, because for 12 months they have just been magnificent all the way through. They've put in the first few months they gave up holidays, they doubled up hours, they worked fastidiously, trying to get the word out, and just pulled out all the stops, and they've carried on doing that right the way through. And I just really don't think everybody out there has acknowledged and patted them on the back to the same degree as they have some of the other people. And whilst not taking anything away from the NHS, who've done a magnificent job, it is the staff in stores like ours that have really kept the communities together and have been able to get people to, get food onto people's plates, and adapted and had to do things that they've never done before. And I think the real thing that's really interesting for me now, the stores are still busier, and now they're saying it's quiet. But if you could have rolled back a couple of years ago and said that was that, they'd have been telling you how busy it was. So they've just adjusted and adjusted and adjusted. And then I think all the suppliers, and particularly for us, Blakemore's as our main supplier, it's the trying to stay in contact and talk with us all the time. It's to try to keep you up to speed. And again, what's extremely difficult circumstances, because one minute they've got people on the road, one minute they haven't got people on the road. The Zoom and the Teams piece is probably not something independent retailers are used to. And the tendencies with those meetings have all been quick, sharp and effective, but you can't get the bigger conversations out, can't you? You can't see people. It's the networking piece that's been missing. So they've been magnificent. And again, the critical link for me is people like the ACS, who again have been the bridge in the middle, have been binding all the different symbol groups. They've been binding all the different suppliers and being able to support and to help. They've also been there in terms of, from an environmental health perspective, because not only now have we got the challenges that you would have in a food environment, but you've got all the COVID related pieces as well. Are we maintaining it? Are we doing the right thing? Have we got the right checks in? So yeah, they would be my two sort of big mainstays of thanks. And then all the local suppliers, we use a number of local suppliers, wine suppliers, fresh food and produce suppliers, who again have just been there, and particularly Bright Brothers, our produce supplier in Hampshire, who it's a phone call at 5-6 in the morning and the product's delivered by 10 in the morning to us, and available. And it's just been, it really is a little piece of everybody, all the jigsaw coming together. Just been fantastic.
So you were at the ACS conference, the summit this week. Are there any takeouts from that session?
I think there were two real takeouts for me. Was the guest speaker I found quite interesting, because one of my first managers' attitude always was, the answer's yes, now what's the question? And when he was going through his piece about being knocked back from when he was ill, and the whole motivation of him, wasn't it, was very much about, we just need to find an answer to the challenge. And I think we all get into that. No, the answer's no, let's move on and do something else. When actually the thing that COVID has done over the last 12 months has taught us that we have to adapt. That independent retailers and smaller retailers, we are fleet of foot and able to adapt. So I think that was the piece for me that was really interesting. And then I think is it Michael's piece, just giving an overview of, and again he's touched on what I said a minute ago, the support that the industry has given to us, to everybody, and acknowledging it, that it's not just about one individual symbol group, it's about the collective. The collective of all. Back to the ACS again, isn't it? It's that piece that the ACS has underpinned for us.
And talking about coming together as a wider industry, you joined us on a very difficult interview we did with Raj Agarwal's family to raise money for Do As Raj Would Do. Really excited to find out this week that the money raised so far across the industry has just exceeded £20,000. So thank you so much to everybody who has donated so far and for getting behind this great campaign. Let's hope that this goes towards a new ward, or even just Leicester Children's Hospital doesn't have, or Leicester Hospital doesn't have a children's ward at the moment. So let's hope that goes towards that, and also the Memorial Garden in Sheffield. So if you haven't donated already, I'll put a link at the bottom of this post so that you can make a donation, whether that's personally or perhaps you could ask the business that you work for to make a donation. That would be absolutely fantastic. But really excited to see that we've exceeded £20,000 so far. So that's really exciting. Have you got anything to add on the Do As Raj Would Do campaign from your side of things?
No, I guess, as you know, when we were speaking the other week, Raj has played a big part in my life personally. Always ready to give advice. I was really fortunate with some of the other guys to do a couple of foreign excursions with him, wine tours. So I saw the real softer side of Raj when he put an arm around you, and was a true, not only just a true gent, was a real friend, rascal amongst many things. So no, we just need to do it. And there's 2 or 3 of us in the background trying to organise a golf event of some format later in the year, which you're probably aware of already. And again, isn't it? It is vitally important that as a sector we pull together, and using Raj is such a brilliant opportunity to pull it together. And massive credit to Sunita for deciding to do something. Massive credit again to Blakemore for then giving her the start point from it, and for everybody so far. And I'm sure not only will it just be about today and about the children's ward or Sheffield Hospital as well, but the bit for me is just to at least once a year stop and to think and not let Raj's memory disappear, and remember just what he did and the role that he played, and make sure that we all pick it up as individuals. So fantastic. We're reaching out locally to do things as well, and again, as you're aware, Blakemore's will co-support some of the things that their retailers do at a local level as well. Now, it's really important to dig deep, as they say.
Yes, please do. So thank you so much for your time today. Really look forward to catching up with you again soon. Of course, we talk every week as part of raising some funds for the Do As Raj Would Do campaign. But thank you so much for your time today for CTALK, and wishing you the best with both of your businesses.
Fantastic, Kate. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.